And we're live. Good morning and afternoon, mediums. I'm your host, Kayleen Williams. With me is Lauren Moore and our special guest, Brian Meeks. Last Thursday on episode 13, we had Brian on to talk about how to master Amazon ads. That was a really good episode. Lots of really good information in there. Well, he's got something else in the works, and it's going live this week, I believe Thursday. I think you said
That's
Tuesday.
correct. Yes.
How to master Amazon descriptions. Woo. And we're here to ask you about that, to celebrate the launch of your new book, and to open up the chat for anyone to ask Brian about whatever, be it guinea pigs, descriptions, we're open to that, anything.
We're open to anything, exactly.
So thanks for coming on the show again, Brian.
Well, I'm pleased to be here. Thanks for making the time to do this for my launch. It was very nice of both of you.
Absolutely. I mean, we, as authors, descriptions are one of those things that a lot of people tend to despise the most. It's like they got the book and now they're like, description. So
I absolutely did when I started. I hated them. It was always the source of stress for every launch was figuring out that description. I usually did them poorly.
So you are best known as the Amazon ads guy. Mm-hmm. And now you've written this book on Amazon descriptions. What prompted you to write this book, and why do you think indie authors need to read it, comb through it, mark it up?
Well, since launching the Mastering Amazon Ads book, the most common issue that I think I've seen in my group or questions in other groups, the most common stumbling block for authors is their descriptions. So they're working to try to make their ads profitable, but their description's letting them down because it's taking them 30 plus clicks to get a single conversion, be it a download through KU or an actual paid sales. And that makes it really hard to be profitable. I learned a long time ago that after having studied Sugarman's book, it's called Ad Week on the art of copywriting, that it makes a big difference. And all of my descriptions for my books were converting in the 130 plus range. And then I rewrote them and they dropped to 1 in 10, 1 in 10 to 1 to 12. Now the best one is at about 1 in 8. I know other authors that have done slightly better than that. It just makes a big difference when you're paying for each of those clicks, how many clicks it takes to get somebody to give your book a try.
So, for example, what would that look like in your profit margins on a book, going from 1 in 30 clicks down to 10?
Okay, let's say that you were spending $100, and you might be losing money. So you're spending $100, and let's say you were getting $80 back in revenue. Well, the difference would be now if you drop to 1 in 10, you're not spending $100, you're spending $33. So you're going from losing 20 to get $80 in revenue to making $47 and what 40. Let me just do the actual ROI here.
Yes.
I can't do that one my head.
Who's doing the math for us, Kayleen?
Yes. 47 divided by the spend 33 so you're going to 142% return on investment. So a ROI of minus 20%, going from 100 to 80 to an ROI of a positive 143%. That's a huge deal. And again, a lot of authors don't enjoy math, so it's the thing about advertising your books is it's pass fail. You're always, if you're making a profit, then it's good, and you want to try to figure out ways to do your ads better to get more bang for your buck, absolutely, but you want to keep doing it. Well, there may be authors out there that are making a little bit of profit, but they haven't optimized their ads. This is an inexpensive way. It's really just a time commitment to learn how to do it, to really give you an opportunity to get more bang for each individual click spend. And so that's what I'm hoping people will find from this book. And that the ultimate goal for me is that I want people to go from hating writing descriptions to actually enjoying copywriting, because it is remarkable. I started this new group on Facebook called Mastering Amazon Descriptions, naturally, because it's there for the people that are going to buy the book and are interested in this. But it's amazing how many people are in the group are already buying into the idea of trying to use copywriting, not just for their description, but if they're having a chat in Facebook. We've all seen the giant blocks of text when somebody posts something. Can you help me with this? And then they give you 15 or 20 lines of what they want help with. And that's hard to read. Right. One of the things I talk about in the book is holding down the control button and then hitting enter twice. And that's how you put blank lines in your Facebook posts. And the people in the group they're getting that. And they're starting to do that. And you're seeing everybody making an effort to try to think in terms of, can I add a hook to this Facebook post and all that? And if you get to where it's easy, you'll no longer have the stress of doing your descriptions. You'll kind of find it fun, but you'll also do better at writing your newsletters. You'll get better responses from your list. And so there's a lot of ways it's going to make your overall marketing better and easier for you. So hopefully I've done this book in such a way that people will come away from it, have fun, and want to embrace copywriting.
A lot of us are creative types, so we might not be too familiar with the term copywriting. So before we get too much further into like the weeds, like what do you mean by copywriting, and then how can we start applying that to different kinds of writing we do on a regular basis, like social media posts?
Absolutely. Copywriting is simply the art of using words to sell something. Your copy, whether it's in a magazine, on TV, commercials, that's copywriting. And so if it's a Geico commercial with the caveman, there was a copywriter, and she likely, well, I don't know that it was a she, but I used to work for Geico, and I know it had been a number of women worked on those ads. But anyway, I was trying to remember some of their names. Not to go off on a tangent, but I can't help it. The woman that came up with the concept of the gecko, she just such a genius. She retired while I was there, but she was this tiny little woman, about 5'1", from Brooklyn. I think it was Brooklyn, and she had this New York accent, was tough as nails, and had an encyclopedic knowledge of baseball. She was a rabid baseball fan. And this tiny little woman, in meetings with the president, the senior vice president of marketing, all of the people that run Geico, she was just a force of nature. And none of them liked the old white guys. None of them liked the gecko idea. And she convinced them. They just didn't get it. And she said, this is going to work. We're going to do it. And her reputation was such that they believed her, because that was her skill set, was marketing. And so when it came down to it, even though they didn't get the concept, they trusted her because she was such a brilliant woman and such a tour de force. And I loved her dearly. And she's not dead. I was sad when she retired. And so anyway, I was just thinking about her. I digress. That's not the point. It doesn't matter the gender of the person that writes the copy. That is not relevant. What is relevant is that it is the copy that catches people's attention, that makes them remember things, that makes them want to learn more, and ultimately get to that tipping point where they will make the purchase. And this is a concept. If you've ever gone and shopped for a car, you'll notice that the salesperson is really trying to get you to buy before you leave the store. And that's that way in a lot of high-end purchase decisions where the customer, they don't want them to leave, because it's been shown through many tests that the minute you get away from the car lot or whatever, your interest level, even if it had been above the buy line, if you didn't buy, every minute you're away from that car dealership, your interest level is dropping and there's another opportunity for some other car to catch your attention. And once you drop below that line, you decide, oh, well, maybe I don't need a car yet. And so that's why they pressure you so hard to try to get you to buy the car right then, because they know that interest is waning. And it's the same way with Amazon descriptions. The person clicks on the ad, or maybe they found you organically. Maybe they just did a search for romance novel and found you on the third page and clicked on it because the cover was pretty. The moment they've clicked, they're interested, but you have to get them above that line where they're willing to hang around and read all the way to the bottom of the description. And that's part of the art of copywriting, is getting a person hooked. I talk about hooks in the book all the time. A hook is simply there to make them want to read more. The hook doesn't necessarily make them want to buy it. You're not going to get them to say, oh, I read the first 4 words, I'm going to buy it. The hook is there so they'll read the second line. And again, this goes to Sugarman. This is his concept, not mine. Gets them to the second line, and that one should get them to the third. And then by the fourth, maybe the paragraph or what have you, you have hooked them enough that they're going to commit some time to reading an entire paragraph. But you don't want it to be 5 or 6 lines long, because they may not make it all the way to the end. You want it to be short. The difference, your listeners are all writers. We write prose. Prose is a different style. Copywriting is short, punchy. It has a rhythm. You want to just move people through it quickly. It's not showing off your skill as a writer, because they'll get that once they get to the book. And then ultimately you get down to the end. And I always like to bring people, I call it bringing the reader into the description, where I say something to the effect of, you'll love because, or I'll say you'll like because, and then maybe everybody loves, something like that. But it's the you and the because now I've gone from my third person talking about the book, the characters, what have you, hinting about what they might do, to addressing you, the potential reader. And that's powerful stuff. The you because is not something I made up. This is from actual research. You, because, new, instantly, and free are the 5 most powerful words in copywriting, because they work. And so I put those in nearly every description. And then the last thing is the get it now, which is the call to action, which people don't even notice that it triggers something in our brain. We have seen from Madison Avenue, TV commercials, we've grown up, and there's always a call to action. There's always that buy it now, and we expect it to be there. We don't really read it. It's just there, but it does matter. It helps. That's where you're trying to keep the person on the lot, to keep them from wandering off without buying your book. And well, an individual may not convert. I mean, we're still failing 9 out of 10 times to convert. That's what you have to understand. It's like in baseball. A world-class batter fails 7 out of 10 times, but they get a 300 average and they go to the All-Star game. And if they do it over a career, they probably go to the Hall of Fame. In the book business, a Hall of Fame description fails 90% of the time. But the difference in revenue between failing 90% of the time and failing 96% of the time is the difference between being able to quit your day job and not. So that was kind of a long-winded answer, but this is the second one of these you've done with me. You know that I get long-winded.
So start out with a catchy hook, and then the goal of that is to get them to read the next line, and then the third line, and then keep going.
Exactly.
In your book, you give details about, you break all that down, and you talk about the big twist. Did you tell us what the big twist is?
Well, the thing about I don't recall the phrase. Did I use the phrase "the big twist" in the book? Are you quoting the book?
Words messed up a little bit, but I think it's like the third sentence in the synopsis has a twist in it.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, yes, it's about rhythm. Okay, yeah. I have an example now. I kind of know what you're talking about here. Let's go. So, Henry Wood Detective Agency. I like to have sort of not always, because every description is different. Different authors, all the books are different. You have to kind of understand what the readers like. And this is a thing I talk a little bit about in the book. I maybe should have written at greater length about this, but one of the things that I do if I'm writing somebody else's description is I go in and read the comments from their readership. And I tend to focus on, well, I read the 5s, the 3s, and the 1s. And so what I'm looking for is, are there things that get mentioned numerous times that people loved? Because there might be a word that gets used over and over. And if that word is used by 3 or 4 or 6 people written in the description, then that may be a really good hook word. So I'm looking for that. I'm also looking for things that maybe in the 1-star reviews didn't appeal. And again, if there's a word or descriptor of some sort about it that they found was a turnoff, then I might not use it. Now, if it's something that I think is important, like, the 3 people said there's too much foul language in the book. Well, maybe then you want to address, John's a detective with a checkered past and isn't afraid to use colorful language, or something where you're hinting at, okay, if you're put off by swearing, maybe this isn't for you, because sometimes there's value in steering away the potential 1-star reviews. So those are things that I think about as I'm trying to figure out how to do a description for someone else. And I think it would really benefit authors when they're trying to write their own descriptions, because often we can't see the forest for the trees. And so there'll be perspective of things that we may not think are awesome that the public can. And so keeping all that in mind, my description for Henry Wood, you're talking about that 3rd line. My first 3 lines are, Henry knew one thing. And then I use an ellipses. That's only 4 words. Okay, it's only 4 words, but Henry knew one thing, ellipses. Now, the ellipses is such that that's pretty powerful. Nobody's going to stop reading after line 1. You've got to go down to the next line and find out what comes next in the sentence. Dames or trouble. Okay, so that's only 3 words. It's small. And I always talk about the hooks being short. You want them small so they're easy to digest, because we want to get the person down to that read more where they click and open up the full description. And the last thing is, would this client be the exception? So from the top, Henry knew one thing. Next line, dames or trouble. Would this client be the exception? Okay, questions I think are really good, because it's going to be pretty hard for a person to stop there and not move on to the rest of the description. And so I'm always looking for that, like you said, it could be a twist, some sort of wordplay, or anything that is so intriguing in that 3rd line that, okay, now they're committed and they're going to read the rest of your description. So that's kind of what I was going for.
So something I'm seeing too, with the way that you're describing the book descriptions, it's not just trying to hook, the tropes in the story, or the first 10% of the book. I hear a lot of, different ways to write a good description, but you're also targeting the readers that will want to read your book. So you can't think of it more as a synopsis of the book. It's definitely the marketing tool to bring readers to those things.
Yes, and you brought up an important point. It's not just about getting the sale. It's about getting the right sale, because the better you do at finding a person that would really love your book, the chances are greater than that they'll read the next book in the series, or they will read a book that's from an entirely different genre that you're the author for. I write across, I've just started a fantasy series, so it'll be 6 genres now. And I get emails from readers who say, you know what, I've never read a science fiction book in my life, but you had a science fiction series and I've liked everything else you've written, so I gave it a try. And so again, but I always try to focus on all my books. For the most part, there's some snarky humor in there. My satires are very heavy on the snarky humor. The mysteries, there'll be 2 or 3 instances, so it's a very tiny bit, but it's a common thread in my writing that I'll make a reference or something. In the fantasy series, I just made a reference to the song Neil rode through the desert on a horse with no name.
Yeah.
Told him to get out of the rain. I made a reference to that song in my fantasy series, a pop culture reference, just because it made me happy. But my readers know that I do that sort of thing. So as far as trying to find people that will enjoy that element of my style, the ads that I've written, my most successful one is More Snark Than a Snarkopotamus in Snarktown on a Snarking Spree, which I mentioned in our other interview. And that one, it absolutely found the right readers. For the next 6 weeks, all but one of the 20 plus reviews I got, I think it was 24, 23 of them were 5 stars and one was a 4-star. Now it's a 4.3 book. So, I mean, that's for a span of a couple dozen, it was a 4.9 book because I got the exact right reader and they loved it. And so the same thing with your description. Try to understand who will love your book best. And to do that, if you've already got some reviews, there's your answer. The 5-star ones are the people that like your book best. So if they say, you know what, I love the characters, I thought the book was wonderful, but I really enjoyed the world building. Well, maybe that goes in your line. You'll love this post-apocalyptic thriller because Brian builds a world that you want to visit. Well, in a post-apocalyptic, that might not be the case, but you get the idea. So if there's something that jumps out, figure out how you can work that into the description, but in sort of a soft, subtle way. Again, I'm always talking about how you shouldn't tell the readers what the whole story is about, because then, well, as a description gets really into the weeds, and I read one today, and I'm not going to read it because I don't want to throw the author under the bus, but she asked for my opinion on it, and I think I told her it was pretty bad. But it had a lot of ancillary details that explained why things happened in the book, but you don't need that in the description. You need that in the background and the story building and making sure it all makes sense over the course of 50,000 words. But they don't need to know it before they pay you for the book. They just need to understand that there's this character. She's suffering mightily. She's on this hero's journey. Will it kill her? That's your description. And then, well, I want to know if it kills her. And that's what you're trying to do. And so it's an entirely different mindset. And you can look at every description written by a traditional publisher. None of them do it right. They all have this big, massive, these are all the cool things in the book. Da, 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 da. It's like they're writing for Sears catalog or something. It's just not intriguing. And so I hope that comes across and people understand that your goal here is to sell your book. Selling is not a dirty word. If you've written a book that people are going to enjoy and you want to bring them happiness, it behooves you to do your best job possible of making sure they buy that book so they can feel joy. Don't you want them to feel joy?
We want them to feel joy.
Exactly.
So that brings up a really good question. What ought your book description to be doing and what shouldn't it be doing?
It should be hinting at what might happen in the book, not telling people what will happen in the book. Now, I mean, again, I'm not to beat my Henry Wood story to death, but I'm just going to read it from the top to the bottom. And the thing that I want people to listen for is, at any point do I discuss what the book's about, and I don't. Henry knew one thing: dames were trouble. Would this client be the exception? She walked in, sat down, crossed her legs, and asked for a light. Boy, could she cross a leg. Before the woman had told him why she needed a detective, Henry wondered if she was playing him. There was something about her. The red lips and smoldering eyes were just a little too perfect. She knew how to get her way. And the dress, she wore a Dior dress that would make an hourglass self-conscious. Was it the Damsel in Distress act? This was the second one he'd seen this week. Something wasn't adding up. 1955 was going to be an interesting year. You'll love this noir mystery with a twist because everyone loves a broken detective trying to do what's right. Get it now. This is there's all sorts of hooks in there. You know, it's
also painted a picture of who this main character is without literally saying, hey, there's this snarky detective that.
Exactly. And that's my point, is that I accomplished the same things. I painted a picture, but I didn't say Henry Wood's a detective, you know, a lonely single detective down on his luck, who just has a new client and he's not sure he can trust her. Will the case, or, you know, but then he goes on this case to try to find her accountant father, and then a second woman shows up who's also interested in the same ledger, and it's all pissing off a gangster. I mean, that's what.
So yeah, no, I totally would buy the first one, and then the second one, I do see a lot of doing. It's wordy and gives so much info that you're just like, next.
Yeah, and that's the one I saw today earlier. It was probably 500 words long, and honestly, I didn't even read the whole thing. I just can't even. And that's the thing. When somebody asks me for help, I generally want to help them. So I'm motivated to try to get to the end of the description, even if it's painful for me. But sometimes, if there's like 8 sentences in a paragraph, and they're lovely prose, that's fine, and they're you know, your compounds. I mean, it can be long, and I just don't want to read it. It's so hard, and I know people listening. You have clever listeners, I'm sure. They may be saying to themselves, "But it's a book." They want to sit down for 2-3 uninterrupted hours and do nothing but read. Yes, but not until they get the book. Until that point, they are 10 seconds away from going back to Facebook to check on the post of their new puppy, see how many likes it got. They've got the kids coming home from school. They're going to either read your description or they're going to move on with their life. And it may not even be by a book. So you got to get them to stay with it and have an experience that is easy. And that's why I talk about, and in all the descriptions, there's a lot of blank lines, a lot of white space, because it makes it seem lightweight and not intimidating. And anybody listening, I want you to think about the last time you saw a Facebook post. It was 20 lines long in a single block of text. Everyone's brain does the same thing. Oh my God, I'm going to like it because he's really nice. But
I'm not going to read it.
I can't be bothered to read it. And so.
Yeah, people, I mean, these, you know, with the phones and everything, people really only have like a 5 to 10 second, if that, you know, attention span. So you got to be able to hit them within like half a second, you know.
Oh yeah, and that's why, again, I preach this over and over. First line, no more than 6 words. If you have a choice of having Alexandria, I don't know, Alexandria walk to the car, I would change Alexandria to she, because it's 3 letters.
Right.
And so anything you can do, and that's, you know, look at maybe your first draft of your description, there's a word and you can substitute out a smaller word. And if you make it shorter, left to right from the entire line, a better chance of it registering and getting them to read that second line. And again, I love misusing ellipses. I'll have, you know, the first line 4 words and it'll end, and then the second line will start with ellipses, which again, you don't do that. But I don't care about the rules. Sometimes I use I capitalize things in the middle of a sentence because I want them to stand out. I don't do that as much with fiction, but with nonfiction, I might use some improper capitalization. I might capitalize an entire word like not, N-O-T or something, to make it stand out. You can use bolding and things like that to, again, that's more something I would do with nonfiction. But in college, I had this course, and I wish I could remember the woman's name. She was a brilliant teacher, and we spent a week talking about web design. And I don't even remember the name of the course, but in that she gave these examples of, and this was in 1995. So the internet was a different world back then.
Right.
But she gave these examples of using bold throughout this article. And it had been tested and how much better it performed as far as, and I don't know if it was a test she had done or this was a study she was sharing with us. It was 95. It's been a few years for me. But the thing that I took away was the copy that had the bolding throughout it, the important words, so that you could just literally scan from top to bottom and see 10 words and understand the 50,000 foot view of what the author was trying to get across, to the one that didn't. The copy was the same, just one had bold and one didn't. Then when they asked, however they did the test, the people that read it to recall, the group that had the bolding in it performed vastly better at remembering the nature of what was happening. And again, this was a study, and so presumably people were reading top to bottom on both of them, but the group that had the things that stood out, that group could recall it like 30 minutes later vastly better than the one that couldn't. And again, it's been since 95. If I could find that study again, I probably would have quoted it in the book. But the point being is that as long as, you don't want to make grammar errors. You don't want to do things where grammar Nazis are going to get you. And if you're doing newsletters, you don't want to use Comic Sans because font Nazis will get you. But
it's a true thing.
In copywriting, you have a bigger goal, and that's to get them to somehow be impacted enough that they will buy your book. Or somebody asked if my book was good for nonfiction as well, and admittedly, I think I only have one nonfiction example in the book, and I didn't even use Mastering Amazon Ads. I could have used that as well, and that would be two. But my response was, it's about the art of copywriting. It's good for fiction, nonfiction, and people that want to sell lawnmowers.
Yeah, it's one thing that I'm noticing. I'm trying to do it in my Facebook posts to do the copy.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to create a personality in the writing.
Yes.
So instead of the prose of my author voice, it's like, hey, here's an emotion based on whatever it is that I'm talking about.
Sure.
Keep reading and then click this link.
Yeah.
Because now I've hooked you and you want to go read more of whatever I was conveying.
Well, somebody asked a question earlier. They said, it's been a trend that in my genre, and they didn't mention their genre, so I don't know which genre she was referring to, but it's been a trend in my genre to write descriptions in first person. So I've rewritten my description in first person. Well, I responded that, okay, maybe a trend, but is it a good trend? Does it perform better than third person? I personally dislike first person. I have no idea because I haven't studied. I don't have any data, but the whole follow the crowd thing is bad advice unless the person that started the trend actually did research and found that, this works. And again, I'm all about the data. A great example in ads. I know we had some questions ahead of time about ads, and the landscape has changed a lot. There's a woman that a lot of people will know from 20 Books to 50K, Felicia Beasley, and she does a ton of research. She's into data like I am, and she's probably in the last 3 months I know she's done more research than I have, because I kind of shut things down at the end of each year because the ads are so expensive. And she's seen vast changes in Amazon since they made the changes January 6th, I think. And so she's doing a ton of research now. I just, after some comments she left in my group, started thinking about maybe some things that I need to relook at, because that's another thing about data is something I studied 2 or 3 years ago, if Amazon changes things, my perception may no longer be correct. And so I've always railed against spending much time curating keyword lists, because 2, 3 years ago when I tried test, I couldn't find any statistically valid benefit. That being said, things have changed a ton. And so I'm going to do, I actually was working on this before the show. I'm going to run a bunch of research ads with smaller lists. I wanted to find out about relevancy because that gets talked about. And I did a study with 4 keywords where I took 4 authors, George R.R. Martin, Stephen King, who wrote 50 Shades of Grey? E.L. James, is that right?
Yeah.
E.L. James, and I think Neil Stephenson. So no, that doesn't sound right. I forget who the 4th person was, but George R.R. Martin, we all know, Game of Thrones. Then Stephen King, horror. Maybe it was Neil Stephenson, science fiction, and then E.L. James, 50 Shades of Grey. And so I then ran them on 2 different books. One was my thriller. One was my science fiction book, and bid like $1.50. I mean, something crazy, because I didn't care. I wasn't doing it to make a profit. I wanted to see if, assuming you grotesquely overbid, does relevancy matter, or will they just spend your money because they don't care? And it absolutely mattered, and that changed my thinking about, my assumption was always, why would any author who is writing mysteries pick not relevant keywords? Well, maybe somebody would. And so the idea being, I've always picked words that I thought were relevant. Now, and partly because of all the work Felicia's done, she's digging into relevancy at a level that I just had never bothered. I want to do research as well. And so the test that I'm setting up now, I'm going to break keywords into probably 50 to 100. So they'll be smaller lists, but it's going to be, I'm going to make a list of what my personal opinion is on the keywords as they relate to my book based on my knowledge of the book. These are authors I think line up. So that's my personal opinion. That'll be a list. Then go back and look at the historical impressions from old stuff and see what Amazon delivered as far as volume of impressions, and build a list based on, okay, for whatever reason, these got delivered a lot. So maybe it was relevant in a way I didn't know. So make that a list. And then also, the other one I want to do is I'm going to go down and look at the ads that are running against my book. So the ads that are showing up, and use the people that are advertising against my book and count them as relevant and see how those compare. And then I will do that because I write across 5 genres. I can do that across different ones. And then I'll probably keep the one that I use as a control group as the control group, and then just run my normal keyword list that I always run on that one, and see if I can get one of these types of more relevant lists to outperform the others. Again, I have no idea if I'll be able to, but I think in this era that the people like Felicia, there's others out there that are looking for ways to make their list more relevant, and I think that they're doing a great job. And I don't know what the answer will be, because the changes have kind of thrown a monkey wrench in things, but that's how authors should be thinking about their lists, is try to come up with some crazy ideas. Is there a way that you can test your idea of relevance versus some other idea of relevance? Like I said, maybe the ads running against your book or something like that, and just see if you can get better delivery performance, because that's what I'm shooting for on this study. Is if one of these perceived groups, my perceptions, can get, so it gets more impressions delivered to it. And then, then I can look at the how many clicks they get and all of that. But ultimately here, I'm trying to find, can one of these things do a better job on, again, I'll bid the same thing across all of them. I'll probably overbid because it's not about the profitability as much as the goal is delivering of impressions. And I want to bid at a rate that is probably kind of above everybody else, so that it's not competition as much as it is my lists, competing against each other for whether they get delivered. And so, I don't have any answers from that, but if people listening think in terms of maybe doing your own studies and research, I'm not suggesting you should overbid by any means, because, the research value is valuable to me. I do want to update Mastering Amazon Ads and bring it current. Now that this book is done, I can turn my attention back to that. So I have some alternate ways that these ads will be profitable for me in the research. But, if people want to test things at the bids that they've been doing, they may learn something. And so I hope that's helpful to folks.
So we talked about how to set up your Amazon ads a lot in the last episode, in the Mastering Amazon Ads episode. And you go into it in detail in your book, which is a great book, great read. I suggest everyone takes a look at that. So the basic idea is run a whole lot of different ads, Amazon ads, test and see what works, keep trying to change things up. In the book that you're releasing now, you talk about changing your descriptions and letting the description run for a while, for a couple months even. And then if you're still not seeing those sales, keep on changing up your description and tweaking it until you find one that really works. Guy Anthony DeMarco in the chat says, data changes all the time and old data can waste a lot of money.
That's a great point. Who was that said that?
Guy Anthony DeMarco.
Oh yeah, Anthony. Good point, Anthony.
And he follows that up, and Josh, I'll get to your question in a moment, but Guy follows it up with, has Brian considered working with a distinct curated group of data experts like him to come up with a current methodology that works while spreading out the research workload? Ooh, I like that idea.
I had not. It's a great idea. And I think him and I are friends on Facebook, so I would encourage him to send me a message, and maybe we can all, a bunch of us can do some of these tests, and then get, and then I wouldn't have to spend as much money, which would be awesome. but even then, I only write. I write across 5 genres, which is really helpful for analysis, in that you can see, is there really a difference between genre? But if there were 5 authors doing it, that might cover 12 or 13 genres. And so yeah, Anthony, send me a message on Facebook, and if we're not already, I think we're connected. I don't know if we're not connected, then send me a friend request first. And I love that idea.
And you have those 2 Facebook groups, the Mastering Amazon Ads, now Mastering Amazon Description Facebook groups, and that could be a place where people can get together and share data like that.
Absolutely.
Josh Hayes also asked, if you haven't asked yet, Facebook ads or AMS for a better return on investment?
I haven't run a Facebook ad in a couple of years, so I don't have an answer. I don't know. I've done quite a bit of Facebook stuff, but then once February 24th is when I started my group for Mastering Amazon Ads, and I've just honestly, it's coming up on 2 years, and in that time, I don't think I've run any Facebook ads, so I don't have any data. So sometimes the answer is you don't know, but again, if a person is curious. Well, okay, here's an example. I had a client recently. I just kind of told him he was wondering if it was time for him to go out on his own, and I thought it was. We worked together for 15 years. I kind of wanted to not really do the client thing anymore, and he was ready to go out on his own. Or not 15 years, 15 months. And so back at the beginning when we started, he was running Facebook ads. He was spending $1,200 a month, and his sales were $4,000, or his revenue was $4,000. Okay, that's not bad. Well, after 3 months of doing nothing but changing his descriptions and then doing a lot of work with his back matter, we went from 4,000 to 7,000. Our ad spend went from 1,200 on Facebook to 0. And we hadn't started Amazon ads. So
Power of the description, yeah.
we eliminated all of his Facebook ads because they were actually running at a loss. And he didn't necessarily have his assumption was that if he turned off the Facebook ads, that was driving his 4,000 in revenue. It wasn't. It was driving almost none of his revenue. It was just costing him $1,200 a month. And so we didn't just turn them off because they were on different books and what have you. We picked one of them. I had him turn them off for that one, watch the numbers, change the description, 0 ads, and the sales were going up. So then we eventually worked through, because he had lots of books, and it turned out the Facebook ads were doing almost nothing for him, which is not, and this, I want to be clear about this. This is not a commentary on Facebook ads. It's a commentary on not asking deep enough questions on the way you're doing your Facebook ads. It wasn't that Facebook ads are bad. It's that the way he was doing them, because he didn't have any background in copywriting, the ads were not effective. Again, I want to be clear. There are lots of people out there making lots of money on Facebook ads. This author was not one of them. And by digging in, we found out that it wasn't money well spent. So I can't, I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for you. I do believe that you can make money on either platform. I think it's really hard, admittedly, on AMS right now because things have changed and the stuff that we've been doing for a long time is less effective. And so it matters. We need to figure out sort of a new way, and that's too bad. Maybe it is time to revisit Facebook because, well, I won't do that because I don't want to muddy my research. I'm more interested in getting answers to the AMS stuff than Facebook. But with my new fantasy series, which I'll probably launch that in a few months, I might run Facebook ads on it, and and so maybe I'll do my research with that series on Facebook. I don't know, but I would say if this person is concerned about which one is better, there's value in taking a month or two and trying one over the other. Because Amazon is so confusing right now, I would recommend, if they were doing both, to maybe shut down the Amazon stuff, do just their Facebook, get some good data from that, and then with the idea in a couple months, unless they're just destroying it on Facebook, they would shut that down and go back to the AMS stuff. And who knows, in a couple months, who knows what sort of stuff the people that dig into data will have found. So maybe that'll give, I think you said their name was Josh. I hope that answer helps a little bit, Josh.
Yeah. We did have a lot of questions about Amazon changing and different ad strategies that you think would be effective for 2019. And
Sure.
Chuck Manley asks, effective bids per keyword or per click seem to be going way, way up. What's your take on the current state of AMS, and where do you think it's going now that it's becoming more of a deep pocket scheme?
It does. It's shocking how high they're going, and I have a hard time believing that it's only the people with 15 and 16 book series that, I mean, there are people that have series that are long enough, their read through is good enough. There are romance authors that have massive long series, and they can bid anything. It doesn't matter because they can pay $1 a click, spend $8 to get a new reader, but their series is long enough, they make $30 off of each reader. So, their ROI is massive. Could they be doing the same thing for half that? Yes, probably, but maybe they just don't care. But it's hard for me to believe that there's so many of those authors that can throw money at it and it doesn't matter, that's the issue. I think my feeling is the issue is when Amazon changed to the recommended bid, people don't want to take the time to go through and look at all of them so that they'll see, let's say it recommends 75 cents. So they'll just say, screw it, and I'll do that. Well, if you run through your list of keywords, you're going to see that the recommended bid of 75 cents was as a group. But maybe 40% of those words, and I don't know that's 40%, but a portion of those words you're going to see, the recommended bid is 5 to 15 cents. And then there's other ones that are 20 to 30 cents. And what has happened, I think, is that because Amazon rolled out this new way for actually I've got to itch my eye, this new way for the ads back in October, September, something like that. And I think that's when it started, because the easy thing to do is just accept the recommended bid for all your keywords. If you've got 1,000 keywords in a list, and I know I did it the other day, and you went through and looked at their recommended on each one and changed it to the recommended on each individual, it takes an enormous amount of time. It's a huge amount of effort. And not to be cynical, but it was a brilliant financial move on Amazon's part, because I don't think most people are going to take the time to try to really dial in the bids on each individual keyword. And is the recommendation even accurate? When I started on Amazon ads, they were recommending 35 to 45 cents. First year I did it, I think I averaged 5 cents a click. I never bid over 5 cents for maybe a year, yet the recommended bid was 32 cents. Is it that that's the recommended bid for you to be most profitable, or is it the recommended bid for them to be most profitable? And I love Amazon, and I'm not one to ever bash Amazon. I just think that the current system makes it too easy for authors to screw up and overbid. And if you get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 authors all overbidding, it drives up the price. And then the other thing, and this is horrible, and I hope nobody's doing it, but I know that some portion of the population is, there's an option where they can raise your bid by 50%.
I've seen that, yeah.
Well, that's a horrible idea, because what if you're bidding, say, 30 cents, and it's not quite working, but what you needed to bid was 32 cents? Well, if you click that button, Amazon's going to change the bid when it doesn't work to 45 cents. And what if it does work, but it doesn't work any better than it would have at 32? Well, that's 13 extra cents per click you've wasted. And again, I can't even imagine clicking that button. And from the first time I saw it, I couldn't imagine it. But the first thing I thought was 90% of authors are going to click on that. And if that's the case, then they've gone through the roof because we've let them. So I don't know how many readers or listeners will say, but don't use that button. Do the work. If your ad isn't working,
don't hit the button.
Don't hit the button. You know, if your current bid isn't working, try a new set of ads and bid a little bit higher. But a 50% increase is just insane. And again, if everybody's doing it, then, well, you know, maybe it'll destroy Amazon ads. I don't know. I mean, at some point, it just are people doing the math? Are they finding out if they're doing this profitably? I don't know how many authors I've looked at their data and they're running at a loss on ROI. I mean, it happens frequently. A woman the other day wrote a very detailed post, not about AMS ads, about she had a book and she ran 10 or 12 ads on like Robin Reed's Free Booksy, things like that. And she wrote a detailed post about her results. I spent this much on the ad. I had this many sales, and this was my ROI. And she did this for 10 or 12 of them. The problem was she didn't know how to calculate ROI. So her numbers were wrong. On one of them that I remember, she had spent $20, got back $7, but she said her ROI was 36.5%. No, her ROI was minus 64% or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I do remember that it was a negative ROI of 65%. She thought it was a positive ROI of 36% because she didn't know the formula, or maybe she just didn't understand what ROI meant. And so that's another problem. If you're doing the math wrong and you think you've got good results and it's costing you money, it can take, because we don't get paid for 60 days.
Yeah, and then suddenly I had all these sales, all this positive ROI. Why is it only $5?
Yeah,
well,
it takes a while for people to realize that they're crushing themselves. And so I don't know the answer to that. I hope that at least the people listening here will not click that 50% button and will not just take, if it says we recommend 75 cents. I mean, when I see that, I put in 25 cents. And then I go through, and if there's some keywords that are just way too high, well, then maybe I don't use those keywords. And I try that ad, and if it doesn't work, then I will go through and do another ad, and I will bid more, and maybe I'll go up 2 or 3 cents, but I don't go from 20 to 50. I say that, but I'm going to do this research, and because I want to get some answers for people, I'm going to overbid, not because I think it'll be profitable for me, but because I can afford to, and I'm more interested in the data. So again, when I want people to understand that, sometimes I'm doing things for research, and don't just hear me throw out a number like 80 cents and think, and don't tell people Brian says you should bid 80 cents. No, Brian is going to bid 80 cents because he wants results quickly for the research. He would not do it if you were trying to be profitable.
So that everything that you're talking about brings up one of the questions that we had from our episode last week, from Dawn Chapman. She was asking, considering the new overhaul, how has it affected your results, and what new Amazon features do you think may work better than the older ones? Because I know there's like the lock screen ads; those ones don't seem.
Yeah, I haven't had good results. Like I say, I tend to turn off most of my ads for November and December. I just have never done the ads in those months because they don't. There's just too little ROI, and so I would rather not spend the money there and then spend more in January, February, and March at a higher ROI. But I mean,
to see.
The one advantage about end of the year spending, though, is that you do get to write off that ad spend in that tax year, and you don't get the revenue from it till the following year. So one could certainly make the case to overspend in those months if you can do it profitably, because it can impact your taxes. But that's a different story. Anyway, so I mean, I've been approaching the changes the way I approached Amazon ads the very first time I started them, is that I am going to bid less than they're recommending and watch the numbers and see if I can do it profitably on a very tiny scale. And that's my first goal. And then the next goal is, how do I get more impressions? And it doesn't require higher bids, more ads, clever things like I'm talking about as far as creating lists in different ways. And that's, so I'm kind of going back to the basics and starting over with my analysis, because the one person was right. The bids have just gotten crazy, and and PDI ads are gone. I mean, I've almost 90% of my ads have always been the PDI ads. That's where I've spent all my money. Easily 90% of the dollars I've spent have been on PDI ads. I've never done that much with the keyword ads because it was harder to scale, and I wasn't as profitable as I was on the PDI ads. And I know everybody says, PDI ads don't work, but my ROI over a 3-year period was like 200%. So I had it down. But those ads are gone. So my bread and butter, as of February something, doesn't exist anymore. So I'm back to trying to research and work with what they've given me.
The PDI ads, those are the lock screen ads, right?
Well, yeah, now they're called lock screen ads. But They
They're fighting currently, so hopefully they'll be back.
Yeah, and the lock screen ads, again, I don't have statistically significant data, so I hate to give recommendations without being able to say, hey, I did this and the math makes sense. And everything I've seen has been anecdotal, where people have very small click counts, where somebody says I had 40 clicks. Well, that's not a large enough number to feel comfortable with your analysis. But when you see 30, 40 people all reporting the same thing, and none of them are having reasonable conversions. I mean, their conversions have plummeted. And my numbers aren't statistically significant, but I'm seeing the exact same thing as those folks. Now, the other thing with the lock screen ads is I'm bidding way less than what's recommended and getting plenty of clicks and impressions. And so I have seen that you don't need to bid as high as they're saying, but the clicks don't seem to be generating revenue. And so, I mean, there are some, but it's just not very good. So I haven't been impressed with the lock screen. If Amazon can't run their ad system in such a way that nobody makes any profit, I mean, they have to leave some for us.
Right. So they have an incentive to make sure that your ads go to the right people, that the right people are buying, because they're making money off of that too.
Yeah.
With the lock screen ads, there's copy on that, right? There would be like a tagline or something.
Yeah, there's absolutely a copy, and it shows up. I mean, you have all of the real estate on the Kindle, which is brilliant. You're not competing with anyone else. So copywriting is hugely important there. And I think that's why I did so well with the product display ads, is because they would show there, and then there was a banner ad they would show on .com, but it was mostly PDI ads were lock screen ads with one other thing that they stripped out. So in theory, they should be as good or better now. And they're not. They're just not the same as they were prior to the change. And so we need to figure out why that is. One theory, and I can't prove this, but it's possible. Several people pointed out that there's a landing page you go to if your Kindle is not connected to the internet at the time that you see the ad. And they say they've tested it on their Kindles with ads, and they click on it and it goes to this just generic landing page. And if that's happening, maybe the reason our click counts are so high relative to the conversions is that perhaps those didn't count as clicks on the PPI ads. So anytime that happened, Amazon knew, well, you don't really have a chance for a sale because they're not on the internet. And now they've decided, we're just going to charge for those. Well, if that's the case, maybe we're getting charged for 2 to 3 times the number of clicks that we were before, and that's why the conversions have gotten so bad. But again, I can't say that's the case because I don't have any data, and that's a rumor. Again, don't say Brian said that Amazon is screwing us, because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I don't know why it's so bad. There have been some theories put out. Maybe it's unintentionally we're being charged for that. Yeah, I love Amazon. They've changed my life. I love everything about Amazon. I am a complete fanboy, and I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying the math doesn't make sense, because from a conversion standpoint, if a description doesn't change, the people that make it to the description and are reading it, you're going to find that over time and 5,000, 10,000 clicks, that your conversion rate over a large number doesn't change. It might move by 1/10, but that's just variance. It doesn't go from 1 in 8 to 1 in 30 without it being something to do with the quality of the clicks themselves. And so there's definitely something going on, because conversion rate shouldn't change. It should be, again, on each platform. I used to think clicks were a click is a click is a click, but it does appear that different platforms, clicks from Facebook ads will probably have a slightly different conversion rate than Amazon ads, and Instagram will be different, and different platforms, because it's a different type of reader or potential reader, so you should always test. But the change of late has been disturbing. So It's not a great cheery answer. It doesn't help. Probably doesn't help the asker. But my hope is there is something fundamentally wrong in the system, and if everybody stops using lock screen ads, maybe they'll dig it out and they'll find out, oh yeah, well, we didn't mean for it to do that. We're sorry. We fixed it. I mean, they found a problem September 12th of 2017 and sent out, and they said we corrected it. We are giving everybody a credit, and the credit was based on the amount of volume you had done using PDI ads. Mm-hmm. And I got $7,500 credit because they found this mistake and they gave credit. Some people got $50. But again, I truly believe Amazon wants to build a system that works for authors. I've never seen any indication that they don't. And so my hope is there is a problem in the system. It will be found and they will fix it. And then I can go back to spending lots of money on lock screen ads, because that's really where I want to advertise.
Right, because they worked so well.
Yeah.
Which again, you explained all in your Amazon ads book.
Yes. and like I say, I plan on doing research, and the question I get most common is, am I going to update it? Yes, now that the other book's out, I will work on that. I don't know how long it'll take, because I don't know how long it will take to get the research. Now, if the gentleman that asked the question reaches out and a handful of people can run some tests, might get some answers more quickly.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, make your ad copy strong. Don't be wordy, short, punchy.
Exactly.
Hook people in, and then by now, go read it.
Exactly.
Call to action.
And keep testing.
Yes.
Keep testing.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to test.
Any other questions from the people?
So, do you have any last minute questions, Lauren?
We have a last minute comment from Guy. He says, many authors are scared of the business side of things. It's equally as important as the words on the page if one intends to be a professional author, in my opinion. So that's not a question, but it is an encouragement and an exhortation for us to keep going on, keep testing things.
Well done, Guy.
Your data, even if you hate math, do it anyway.
But you know what? I've gotten so many emails from people that read Mastering Amazon Ads and said something to the effect of, I'm a math phobe. I don't like math, but I want to be a full-time author. My want for that was greater than my fear or hate of the math. And so they went through the book 2 or 3 times, and they forced themselves on the chapters about analytics, which are still valid, because the analytics portion of the book is analytics is analytics. And they taught themselves that part. I just got a message from a children's book author last week, and she was doing less than $1,000 a month before she joined my group. And she said, the last 6 months, I've made $50,000. So I don't know what I'll do the next 6 months, but I'm on pace to be a 6-figure author. And she thanked me, and it was very nice. And so, you know, but she was one of those people, and she hung with it and worked very hard. And so it is worth the effort. And once you get it, it's really not that hard once you understand it. It's just like anything. Once it clicks for you, then that thing that you feared that was a challenge kind of becomes easy. It'll be the same way with writing descriptions. Once it clicks for you, you're like, yeah, this is awesome. And so hang in there. Good point, Guy.
So we're a little bit over. Probably should close it out, but you can always, viewers, listeners, all you fantastic people, go to the Amazon description Facebook page. There's also the Amazon Mastering Amazon Ad Beta Reader Facebook group.
Mastering Amazon Ads and Mastering Amazon Descriptions are the 2 groups. The new one, Mastering Amazon Descriptions, right now, because nobody's read the book except the 2 of you. It's mostly pictures of cats and dogs and so forth, because I encourage that. But we will, once ever people start reading the book, my hope is that this will be a place where people will gather to help each other with their descriptions, because the quickest way to get good at writing descriptions is to write other people's descriptions. It is 2 to 3 orders of magnitude easier to work on a book you know nothing about than to work on your own. And so my hope is people will join this group and help other authors, and that's how they'll become good and make their descriptions convert better.
So if you think your description is lagging, you think it's slow, you think it needs to be more concise, you can go to this group, post your description, ask for help, and other people will get on and help you to make it catchy, to give it a good hook, to have a good call to action at the end.
Yeah,
Great.
And later this week, buy the book because it will be going live
Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go find it now. I mean, you can buy it on pre-order if you like. There's been 180 some people that have been nice enough to do that, and so thank you so much for taking the time to help me get the word out. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It was our pleasure.
Thanks for coming hanging out with us again.
Anytime.
So, are you closing it? Do you want me to close it? I don't know what we're doing. We didn't talk about that.
I'll close it. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. As always, let us know what you thought about the show in the comments below. And be sure to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We'd love to hear from you. For Kayleen Williams, I'm Lauren Moore. Thanks for joining us on your writer's journey. Be sure to come back and join us anytime as we talk about reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Media.
Bye, guys.